Steelers Nation, I've got to admit, this one's a shock. One of those nights where the black and gold pride was put to the test in front of the entire country. It's time to face reality head on. No excuses, no sugarcoating. But hold on, because this video isn't just about frustration. It's about understanding what went wrong, what can still be fixed, and what this team needs to do to reignite that spark of hope. So go ahead and hit that like button to back the nation and drop your thoughts in the comments. From 1 to 10, how confident are you that this team can bounce back? Let's break down this chaos together. Because one thing's for sure, when steel is tested by fire, that's when its true strength is revealed. It's officially Overreaction Tuesday, and there's no sugarcoating what we all just witnessed. Steelers Nation. The Pittsburgh Steelers walked into Sunday Night Football and got embarrassed in front of the whole country by the Los Angeles Chargers. It wasn't just a loss. It was the kind of game that makes you sit back and ask what on earth went wrong on every single level. And after spending hours breaking down the film, the reality is painfully clear. This was the worst offensive performance of the season, and it all started with the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Now, before anyone jumps into the comments calling for Mason Rudolph or anybody else, let's just lay it out. Aaron Rodgers had the kind of night that you can only describe as a meltdown. He was overshooting passes, walking into pressure, misreading coverage. It was like watching the old Jets version of Rodgers all over again. If not for a meaningless garbage-time touchdown, his stat line would have been even uglier. 2 interceptions, a completion rate hovering around disaster, and 0 command of the offense on 3rd down. Rodgers looked rattled, and that's not something we've said often this season. But Sunday night, he was the reason this offense collapsed. Still, when you look at the bigger picture, this isn't the Rodgers we've seen all year. Before this debacle, his quarterback rating was flirting with triple digits, and he had already thrown more touchdowns halfway through the season than any post-Big Ben Steelers quarterback had in a full year. So yes, it was a disaster. But it's not time to throw in the towel yet. The Steelers have been a 9-8, 10-7 type of team before. Good enough to compete, not great enough to scare anyone. But with Rodgers, the potential for very good still exists. The real concern, though, is that this offense keeps finding new ways to fail on possession downs. Before garbage time even hit, the Steelers were 0 for 10 on 3rd and 4th down attempts. 0, 4, 10. You can't win in this league like that. Sure, a couple of those missed calls could have gone either way, maybe a defensive pass interference or two that didn't get flagged. But let's be honest, 8 of those 10 plays were just bad football. The Chargers took away Rodgers' first read, forced him off script, and once the quick game options disappeared, panic took over. No rhythm, no timing, just chaos. Then there's the run game, or lack thereof. Once again, the Steelers started slow on the ground, and it was obvious they missed Isaac Sumalo. Without him, the offensive line just couldn't open holes early. It wasn't until the second half that Jaylen Warren started to find any kind of groove, finishing just shy of 100 total yards. And once again, Warren was the heartbeat of this offense. You could argue he's been the Steelers' best offensive player all year, the only one showing consistent fire when everything else falls apart. But you can't keep asking one man to carry the load week after week.
What's frustrating is how much this offense depends on having that jumbo personnel available, the 7-man front that defines their identity when it's clicking. When Sumalo is in there, the Steelers can bully teams with physical football. Without him, it all crumbles. They only ran that jumbo look 9 times against the Chargers, and even then it wasn't nearly as effective. It's almost scary how much one missing lineman can break the system. If any one of those key guys, Sumalo, Darnell, Spencer, any of the front 5, goes down, the offense just loses its foundation. Then there's the receiver situation. The trade deadline came and went, and Pittsburgh didn't pull the trigger on any deal. No Jacoby Myers, no Rashid Shaheed, no Jalen Waddle dream move, nothing. That left the pressure squarely on Calvin Austin III and rookie Roman Wilson to step up. And let's just say it didn't happen. Austin had one of the worst games of his career. He couldn't get separation, dropped 2 passes, one of which turned into an interception, and even failed to get both feet down on a key play. For a guy who'd only dropped 1 ball all season before this game, it was a meltdown. Wilson wasn't much better, and it wouldn't shock anyone if Rodgers starts campaigning to bring his old pal Marquez Valdes-Scantling off the practice squad this week. At tight end, there's another problem that needs to be addressed. Jonnu Smith, the guy they brought in and paid like a top 10 player at his position, has been invisible. He's not creating separation, not making plays after the catch, and his hands have been unreliable. 1 catch for 4 yards? That's it. Meanwhile, Pat Freiermuth is sitting there being quietly productive, maybe even the most efficient pass catcher on the team when you look at EPA per target. He's the safety blanket Rodgers should be leaning on, yet for some reason, the coaching staff keeps giving Smith the majority of snaps. It doesn't make sense. And that's kind of the story of this whole offense right now. Nothing makes sense. One week they look competent, even explosive, putting up 25+ points a game. The next, they can't complete a third down or find any rhythm. It's not sustainable. You can't be a playoff team in the AFC with that level of inconsistency. And the most frustrating part, we've seen them play well. We've seen what this group can look like when everything's aligned. But when they fall apart completely. The truth is, this wasn't just a loss. It was a wake-up call. The kind that tests a locker room. The kind that forces leaders like Rodgers and Mike Tomlin to look in the mirror and figure out who they really are. The defense did their job for the most part. We'll get into that next. But the offense let everyone down. And unless this team can find balance, unless both sides of the ball show up at the same time, this season risks becoming another case of what could have been. So here's the question for you, Steelers Nation. After watching Aaron Rodgers put up one of the worst games of his Pittsburgh tenure, where's your confidence level right now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about QB1 leading this team down the stretch? On the defensive side of the ball, things weren't nearly as grim. In fact, if there was a bright spot from that Sunday night disaster, it was how the defense responded despite being on the field for what felt like the entire game. They were solid in key situations, holding the Chargers to 6 conversions on 17 third-down attempts. That's a 35% success rate, and when you factor in how often they were forced back onto the field because of offensive failures, it's actually impressive. The pass rush was alive and well too, with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith both making their presence felt. Even Nick Herbig added to the sack total, and the interior linemen were holding their ground. It's important to understand the context here. Justin Herbert was getting the ball out fast, 2.2 seconds on average, the quickest any quarterback has released against the Steelers all year. And still, the defense managed to post a 30% pressure rate with 5 total sacks. That's elite. The problem wasn't their ability to disrupt. It was simply that the offense gave them no rest, and eventually, fatigue took over. Now, one guy who deserves a ton of credit is Keanu Benton. Back-to-back strong games, following up his breakout against the Colts with another commanding performance. He's starting to look like a true starting caliber lineman in this league. For pressures, solid against the run, and more importantly, consistent effort on every snap. You can see his confidence growing. He's not just reacting anymore, he's dictating. However, there's one element of the defensive game plan that continues to make no sense: the insistence on playing heavy man coverage. Pittsburgh just isn't built to be a man-heavy defense. Yes, they did it better this week, mixing in a lot of cover one looks, but this team is at its best when it leans into zone concepts, quarters, cover 6, those 2 high shells that force quarterbacks to think twice. Statistically, when they play quarters, they're number 1 in the league in EPA per play allowed. And when they go cover 6, still top 5. Yet they remain near the bottom of the league in how often they actually run those schemes. It's baffling. Brandon Echols struggled badly in man, getting torched by Keenan Allen and even a few lesser-known Chargers wideouts. Joey Porter Jr. and James Pierre, on the other hand, held their own. Pierre especially looked confident, breaking up multiple passes and showing physicality at the catch point. Darius Slay was having a solid night too before leaving with a concussion. If he misses time, and with rumors swirling that the Steelers might sign Asante Samuel Jr., it makes perfect sense to keep Porter and Pierre on the outside while sliding Samuel into the slot if that deal happens. Echols, at least for now, might be better suited as a rotational depth piece. But the real issue that stood out wasn't about cornerbacks or coverage calls. It was about the run defense. That group took a step backward. Kamani Vidal gashed them for nearly 100 yards, and by the second half, the front 7 looked exhausted and undisciplined. And that's where Patrick Queen comes into the conversation. Look, it's time to be honest about what's going on with him. When the Steelers signed Queen away from Baltimore, expectations were sky high. He was coming off an all-pro caliber season, thriving next to Roquan Smith in that Ravens defense. But now, in Pittsburgh, he's the one wearing the green, the communicator, the quarterback of the defense, and he's been a liability more often than a strength. Queen leads all NFL linebackers in missed tackle rate at an alarming 23.3%. That means he's missing nearly 1 out of every 4 tackles he attempts. You just can't have that from your highest paid defensive signal caller. The missed fits, the blown assignments, the red zone manipulation by quarterbacks, it all keeps happening. And when you look at all the defensive miscommunications we've seen over the last 2 seasons, you can't help but wonder how much of it traces back to the guy who's supposed to be calling the shots. Now, to be fair, Queen still flashes his athleticism. He can blitz. He can make splash plays when the path is clean. But that doesn't erase the inconsistencies in his fundamentals. The same speed that makes him special sometimes works against him, pulling him out of position. For a defense that's been built on discipline and physicality, that's a problem. Still, this isn't a unit in collapse. The truth is, the Steelers' defense has been improving. Against Indianapolis and Los Angeles, they've generated more pressure, created turnovers, and limited explosive plays better than earlier in the season. You can feel that they're trending in the right direction. They just need the offense to meet them halfway. Because right now, one side of the ball does its job while the other collapses completely, and that lack of synchronization is the single most frustrating trait of the 2025 Steelers. Think about it. When both sides click, like they did against Indianapolis, this team looks dangerous. That win against the AFC's top seed was dominant from start to finish. But since then, it's been a roller coaster. One week, the defense looks elite while the offense flatlines. The next, Rodgers and company show life, but the defense leaks yards and points. It's inconsistency at every level, and that's the kind of thing that kills playoff runs. The talent is there. You look at the roster, the pass rush duo of Watt and Highsmith, Rodgers' arm, Freiermuth's reliability, Warren's energy, and you know this team can be special, but they're not aligned. And as we move deeper into the season, that window to figure it out is closing fast. The Ravens are heating up, the division race is tightening, and even though the Steelers are still right in the mix, the margin for error is gone. The upcoming matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals isn't just another game, it's a test of this team's mental toughness. Cincinnati might be without Joe Burrow again, and Trey Hendrickson is doubtful, which means there are no excuses. The Steelers already beat this team once, scoring over 30 points the last time they met. Lose this one, and it's time to start questioning whether this group